When my mother-in-law and husband suddenly came to my newly built house, I couldn't help but panic. I couldn't believe such brazen people actually existed. Without understanding my feelings, my mother-in-law boldly entered the house and began touring the rooms on her own, saying it's a 6-bedroom apartment, isn't it? The garden is lovely with its European modern style. The bathroom is spacious with a jacuzzi and it's equipped with the latest facilities. Actually, I can tell Bill to come back, I told him. Brenda seemed to be having a tough time and that he should return to help her. You must be struggling too, right? She said, as if doing me a favor, and laughed. With a house like this, I could even move in. At that moment, something snapped inside me and laughter welled up. What's so funny? Thinking I had gone mad, my mother-in-law stepped back a bit. Actually, I'm single now, I said. What? Replied my mother-in-law. I still laugh when I remember her expression at that time. I should have told her not to be too surprised to keep her surgically fixed face intact. My name is Brenda. I turned 30 this year. My childhood was a bit unusual. My father was a professional wrestler, and my mother ran a club. They met at my mother's club, fell in love, and got married. Neither of them was tied down by family life. They both enjoyed their freedom. I was raised more by my grandparents and the nursery than by my parents, but I could feel that my parents loved each other and loved me, even if our time together was short. I felt secure growing up free-spirited. I fell in love with the overseas culture I experienced during an exchange program in high school. After graduating, I traveled the world as a backpacker. Many parents would worry about a young girl planning such a trip, but my mother generously provided funds and encouraged me, saying, "It's good to gain various experiences while you're young." My father was a bit worried about me setting off, but he taught me self-defense before I left and even contacted wrestling organizations abroad for me. Thanks to that, I traveled to many countries with peace of mind, and I still keep in touch with the benefactors I met during my travels by email. After returning to the USA from 3 years of traveling, I used my travel experience and language skills to obtain a tour conductor's license and got a job at a travel agency. Starting my job, I sometimes felt overwhelmed by the many regulations, but seeing our clients happy became the greatest joy in my work. And among those clients was my current husband, Bill, and his mother, Myra. Bill told me I applied because I wanted to make my mother happy when I got a job, and from his words, it was clear how much he cared for his mother. His devotion to his mother was very impressive to me. My mother-in-law is a beautiful woman who looks at least 10 years younger than she actually is and used to work as a model. Meanwhile, Bill works at a top company located very near the company where I work. Our first encounter happened by chance during lunchtime. "Wait, are you that tour conductor?" he asked. Later in our conversations, he commented, "You were not dressed flamboyantly, but were very unique and striking." At that time, as my work as a tour conductor had decreased and I was doing more desk work, his invitation to lunch became one of the highlights of my day. He had never met a woman like me before and was very interested in the novelty. In the office and elsewhere, my personality, which sets me apart from other women he meets, seemed to offer him a new perspective. Sometimes tired of the advances from other women, he would find solace in our conversations, occasionally letting slip his true feelings. Personally, I find it natural and comforting to talk with men. Hence, I have many male friends. This was very new and intriguing to him. After about half a year, he proposed a relationship in an unexpected way, and I felt quite hesitant. Having dated muscular men due to my father's influence, I was a bit worried about being with someone slim and elite like him. Thus, our conversations were fresh and stimulating for me. My friends told me, "You broke up with those muscular guys before, so maybe they weren't the right match. and advised me not to rule out good compatibility with him. Convinced by their words and logic, I gathered the courage to start a serious relationship with Bill. Once we started dating, Bill carefully planned our dates. While I felt a bit shy each time, I began to feel confident and attractive as a woman. Our relationship progressed better than I had expected, and about a year into our relationship, Bill proposed to me. I made efforts to continue being the right partner for him, gradually acquiring femininity by wearing elegant dresses. Perhaps the fashion sense advised by my mother greatly helped. During this time, when visiting his family home, I made sure to choose modest yet tasteful attire. However, upon seeing me, his mother remarked, "Oh my, Bill has chosen quite a plain woman, hasn't he?" While I was wondering how to respond, Bill casually said to his mother without any explanation, "Maybe someone like her is just right as a marriage partner." I felt a fierce anger inside, but I chose to remain quiet at that moment and decided to calmly confront him about this later, thinking it wise not to start a needless quarrel during our first meeting. Bill's father, an executive at a company, exuded a strict aura with the dignity of a distinguished family lineage. When his family asked about my parents, I clearly answered, "My father has retired from professional wrestling, and my mother manages a club." Hearing this, his parents frowned and immediately called Bill out of the room to discuss something. It seemed they had some issues with my family background, and I wondered why Bill hadn't explained anything about my environment to them beforehand. This incident highlighted a lack of communication within the family, presenting a new challenge for me to understand and manage. Bill's voice filled the room as he shouted, "Quiet, I say." "It's okay, so there shouldn't be a problem," ending the argument with a loud voice. Following this, when the three of them returned to their seats, Bill's father cleared his throat and declared strongly, "Well, he's an adult and can make his own decisions." On the way home, Bill apologized for his parents' rude behavior, saying, "I'll make sure we don't live with my parents. After all, I'm not marrying them." Although I reluctantly agreed to his proposal, I lost the chance to confront him about his earlier comments that someone like her is just right as a marriage partner. Growing up in a very free environment, I was unfamiliar with the concept of family prestige, and I couldn't fully grasp all its implications. Afterwards, Bill and I got married without any problems, and we started a new life in an apartment provided by his company. However, he demanded, as if it were a matter of course, "Since we live in this apartment, because of me, you should pay for the living expenses and utilities." I was surprised and responded, "What?" He explained that the company-subsidized housing still required us to pay the difference, and he did not want to lower his standard of living due to his high social expenses. He persistently tried to convince me. He is very conscious about his appearance, owning only luxury brands. Eventually, I gave in to his persuasion and agreed to pay for our living expenses and utilities, though I had my doubts about this arrangement. It was during this time that his mother, Myra, visited us. At that time, I was working on a shift schedule, making it difficult to synchronize days off with Bill. On days when Bill was off and I was working, Myra usually visited our home. When I came home tired from work, Myra would emerge from the living room and criticize, "Brenda, you're home late. Bill is hungry and upset. It's not like your job is that important. Why can't you come home earlier?" Bill, as usual, did not rebuke his mother's words and just continued watching TV. What happened to our initial agreement to share household chores? Reluctantly, when I started preparing dinner, she would say, "Oh, make enough for me and my husband too. We'll take it home." I struggled to understand why I had had to prepare dinner for 4. Despite feeling uncomfortable, I complied. Recalling a moment at my in-laws' home when I hadn't served tea and was quietly remarked upon as the daughter of a nightclub owner, I could not tolerate criticism of my beloved mother, no matter how much I criticized myself. As Myra was about to leave with dinner for two, she quietly asked Bill at the front door, "Just $300 will do." Despite appearing wealthy, Myra consistently took money from Bill and even took home dinner for two. While I suspected there must be some circumstances, I never asked for specifics. Though I understood his devotion to his mother, I questioned why he continued to give her money at her whim even after our marriage. In a rare occurrence, Myra visited on my day off and asked me, "Brenda, I need your help. Can you lend me $500? I'll pay you back soon." This was the first time she had directly requested money from me. When I asked what's wrong after she asked for the money, Myra replied irritably, "Just lend it to me without asking so many questions." Have you ever thought about who's responsible for the comfortable life you're leading? Upper-class people have their reasons. Angered by her entitlement, I firmly responded, "I'm sorry, but I cannot engage in financial transactions with family without a formal agreement." Myra twisted her face and snapped, "This is unbelievable. I wonder why Bill married someone like you," and stormed off. Soon after, I received a call from Bill who said, "Mom's upset and says you were rude to her. Did you do something?" I told her I couldn't lend her money. I replied honestly, "To make such a fuss over such a small amount, you could have just lent it to her," he scolded. "Why should I have to pay as well? You always give her money," I retorted, slightly injured. Bill sighed and said, "Well, the upper class has its expenses. It might be hard for you to understand," echoing his mother's rationale. "You must have said something awful about her, right?" "Don't say such things. I really want you to stop," I pleaded, hurt by the baseless accusations. "If you're saying you didn't, maybe you said it unconsciously." "That's pretty serious," he suggested. This incident created a significant rift between us. I couldn't forgive him for believing his mother over me. Following this, our life together became tense and silent. During this strained period, I received the heartbreaking news that my mother needed surgery for cancer. Unfortunately, it was too late, and she passed away shortly after. My father and I were consumed by grief, spending our days in tears. After my mother's seventh-day memorial, when I returned home, Myra visited and stated bluntly, "Just so you know, the inheritance is marital property. Make sure Bill gets his share." The club my mother managed was well known in the entertainment district, and it was clear she had considerable assets. Angered by their audacious claim on the inheritance, I raised my voice. "Why should I give anything to you too?" Startled by my pushback, but quickly regaining her composure, Myra looked at Bill and said triumphantly, "See, this is her true nature when you're not around." I was right. Bill looked at me disdainfully and said, "Really? She is like that?" Good thing I prepared this, as he pulled out divorce papers from the dresser. This marked a pivotal and painful moment in my life, confronting not only the loss of my mother, but also the potential end of my marriage when Myra mockingly laughed and showed me the signed divorce papers, saying, "Here's the divorce form. You'll be divorced if you don't apologize." I grabbed the papers and firmly declared, "I will not apologize. If anything, you too should be the ones apologizing." In response, Myra, her face red with anger, shouted, "Bill, let's go home. I can't stay with this woman. You deserve someone better," and she pulled him towards the door. Bill followed his mother and left through the front door. I was so frustrated by the situation that I broke down and cried right there. 3 months passed without any communication between us. While I was organizing things in my new house, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. To my surprise, it was Bill and Myra standing there. Myra, now seemingly cheerful and different from before, greeted me with a smile. "Brenda, you've built such a wonderful house. You should have told us sooner." Confused, I asked, Why are you here? Bill explained, actually, when I went to the apartment to pick up some stuff, I saw you moving. I was curious because you went in a different direction than back to your parents' place. I followed you here. I had no idea you were building such a house. Despite my protest, hey, you can't just walk in like that, they didn't seem to care and began looking around my house. As they entered the spacious, old-fashioned style living and dining room, Myra exclaimed, "Wow, it's so big. It's like a model home." Bill's comment came off somewhat condescending. "I'm impressed. By the sense you're doing well, aren't you?" In reality, the interior selection was done by a professional coordinator, not my personal taste, but I didn't bother to correct them and remained silent. Yes, I had invested $800,000 in this house, and it turned out beautifully. Trying to keep my irritation in check, I calmly asked, "What do you want? If there's no particular reason, please leave." Myra feigned disappointment dramatically. "Brenda, that's harsh. I really regret what happened before," she said while continuing to open each door in the house, commenting, "It's a 6-bedroom apartment, isn't it? The garden is lovely with its European style. The bathroom is spacious with a jacuzzi and it's equipped with the latest facilities." Clearly, there was no sign of genuine remorse. As my irritation grew, I raised my voice. "So, what do you want?" Twisting gracefully, Myra said, "Actually, I convinced Bill. I told him you seemed to be struggling, so he should come back to help you. You must be in trouble, right?" She spoke as if doing me a favor and laughed. "With a house like this, I could even move in." At that moment, something snapped inside me, and laughter welled up uncontrollably. "What's so funny?" Myra asked, stepping back slightly as if she thought I had lost my mind. Her reaction only amused me more, and I muttered, "Actually, I'm single now." Her surprised face was priceless, like a pigeon shot by a pellet gun, a memory that still makes me laugh. "Wait a minute, single? What do you mean? Aren't you Bill's wife?" she asked. "I submitted the divorce papers you left behind with my name filled in," I replied. "What?" Myra paled and hurried to where Bill was lounging in the living room. "Bill, when did you get divorced?" she shouted. He was utterly baffled by the situation. "Divorce? What are you talking about? Brenda wouldn't break up with me. You even said it, Mom, that she wouldn't easily let go of a catch like me." Bill responded loudly enough for me to hear in the hallway. "But she submitted the divorce papers right away." "I thought we weren't serious," he added. "Well, we can just fix that. It must have been just a spur of the moment." At that moment, I entered the living room and shouted, "It wasn't just momentum. I was foolish to marry someone like you. I will never marry again." Bill opened his mouth as if to retort, but suddenly started crying. "Mommy, she's being mean to me." That moment, I was certain that parting ways with this man was the right decision. As Mara stroked Bill's hair, she said, "Don't worry, Brenda is just a bit shaken up. When she calms down, she'll understand there's nothing to gain from letting go of an elite like you, Bill. Brenda, please think it over again." While giving me a pressuring look, furious, I replied, "Enough with the boasting. Laying always about appearances. He's actually a childish person who would soon be swallowed by the harsh realities of life." In response, Myra and Bill, their faces turning red, shouted back, "How disrespectful. Besides, you built this mansion that's way too good for you. What were you planning to do? You were planning to rely on Bull's income." I firmly responded, "Unfortunately, I built this house with my father to start a guest house business funded by government grants and my mother's inheritance. We don't need your help." "What's a guest house?" Bill asked, looking confused. "That's why I plan to host friends from around the world, and soon to open it to other guests as well. This will allow me to interact with people from all over the globe. It's what I truly wanted. I explained excitedly. As I spoke, their expressions shifted from shock to bewilderment. After the divorce, I had taken the time to reflect deeply on what I truly wanted in life. When my father mentioned that my mother had passed away, and he was looking for a small apartment to live alone because our family home was getting old, I came up with the idea of starting a guest house business. Fortunately, my father is still active and has many friends abroad. He loves to talk and was quickly on board with this idea. The procedures required for a guest house are simpler than those for a traditional inn. So, using my own connections, I started the guest house business. When Bill asked, irrelevantly, "But then I can't live here, can I?" I shouted back, "Of course not. We're strangers now, so please leave immediately." They both shuddered at my response. However, Myra timidly clasped her hands and approached me, saying, "Brenda, if you could spare it, could you lend me just $22,000? I'll pay it back quickly. Consider it a property division if you must." I took out my smartphone right there and dialed 911, showing them the screen. They jumped as if sprung and hurriedly left the house. Later, they inexplicably demanded a huge amount of property division. But my excellent lawyer dismissed these claims and even managed to demand property division from them. It turned out Myra had a plastic surgery addiction and had accumulated debt behind her husband's back. Further wasting money on hosts who flattered her, this revelation led her husband to file for divorce. When Myra sought help from Bill, he rejected her, saying, "I have to pay alimony because of you, Mom. If you hadn't messed things up, things would have been peaceful." Meanwhile, Bill made a significant mistake at work and was transferred to a factory in a rural area. Unable to quit because of the property division payments and with no time to play, he now leads a plain life shuttling between home and the factory. As for Myra, she started working in the nightclub industry she once despised. However, her job at a bar targeting an older demographic didn't last due to her lack of customer service skills, and she was quickly fired. Currently, she is juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet, but her exact situation is unclear. Likely, she has been unable to maintain her cosmetic surgeries, drastically changing her appearance. As for me, my guest house business has stabilized, providing a secure income. My father mainly manages the operations, and I work as a freelance writer, traveling freely around the world. I am grateful to be able to dedicate myself fully to what I love, using the inheritance I received from my beloved mother. How's your life going? Are you poor? What are you talking about? I'm worried about you. 3 days had passed since David and his parents left. My mother-in-law contacted me after returning from a family memorial service at my parents' home. I found that everything, except my belongings, was gone without my knowledge. They had moved out. Worried about me, she said, "You were working for $8 per hour, right? Who told you that?" "I wonder why he married such a woman," she continued. "My son has become an executive." With that remark, everything became clear. David had been lying to his parents. He struggled with the disparity between us and had asked to keep it a secret from his parents. It felt like a betrayal of the grace I had shown. Who did they think I was, staying silent for? You really don't understand anything, do you, H? That just sounds like an excuse. It's not an excuse. Originally, it was David who worked for $8 per hour, and I was the one who became an executive. All this time, we've been living off my executive salary. If you want to live with us, I can hire you as a housemaid. Are you serious? Of course. If you decide to work as our housemaid, I might even tell you the address. I couldn't imagine choosing to live with them. That's when I began my counterattack. I refuse. The $8 per hour story is about your son. I choose divorce over enduring that any longer. Stop joking. My son can't be earning such a low wage. Have you gone mad? Through the phone, I could hear my mother-in-law laughing loudly. If you don't believe it, suit yourself. You'll find out who's right soon enough. Or why don't you ask your son directly? What an unpleasant woman, I thought. I should help you, but I've changed my mind. That's exactly what I want. My mother-in-law seemed angry as she hung up the phone. Soon after, I received a call from David. He must have been questioned by his mother. Naturally, I decided to ignore it. I even set up call blocking. He must be panicking, I thought. I decided to enjoy a free life on my own. As a result, David and his family will face difficulties. My name is Lucy. I'm an executive at the company my late father left behind. I have 2 brothers, each holding the positions of president and vice president. Originally, I was working in a different field. That's when I met David, my current husband. It started with a drinking party I was invited to by a friend. What do you do for work, Lucy? Oh, just a mundane office job. And you, David? I'm in sales. Sales. That's impressive. I'm not good at speaking, so I admire that. Really? Thank you. Thinking back, David may have had a tendency to exaggerate even then. At that time, I believed he really was in sales. However, as our conversation flowed pretty well, we exchanged contact information. After regular dating, we both felt comfortable with each other and smoothly moved towards marriage. I've been thinking of meeting your parents soon. Yes, we should do that. How about next Sunday? That's fine. No problem. David had told me his parents were welcoming and gentle. However, upon visiting, it was entirely different. Far from being welcomed, I felt an atmosphere of wanting me to leave immediately. My mother-in-law's attitude was especially bad. Lucy, you work in an office, right? Yes, that's correct. How much do you earn? What do you mean? Don't be silly. I'm asking about your salary. I understood what she meant without needing to be told. What I wanted to know was why she was asking such questions. She was clearly looking down on me. I hoped that David would help me, but he seemed indifferent. He should have at least shown some concern. Yet he remained silent. Just calm down a bit. Money can be earned later. These things should be clarified early on. My in-laws continued to argue in front of me. It made me wonder what I was even doing there. I doubted if there was any point in coming. Eventually, my mother-in-law acquiesced following my father and yelled on the way home. Why didn't you say anything back there, huh? Don't just sit there. David seemed not to understand what I was talking about. I sighed involuntarily. I began to feel anxious about how we could continue as a couple in this state. Sorry. I just get nervous in front of my parents. He looked like a scolded puppy, pitiful. Seeing his face made me feel as if I was the one doing something wrong. If I said more. 3 days later, we submitted our marriage registration. After marrying, we hardly interacted with my in-laws and lived a peaceful everyday life. Then I got a call from my parents. There's something important to discuss. Can you come back home? It was a sudden call. That's fine, but what's up? It's a bit difficult to discuss over the phone. Really? Okay, I'll come over later then. And so I decided to visit them. I'm back. We've been waiting. Please have a seat. Sure, that's fine. I sat down facing my brothers. The atmosphere was filled with a unique tension. Unable to bear it, I asked my brother what this was about. You know we've taken over Dad's business, right? Yes, I understand that. You've explained it before, I replied. We want to add you to the management team and have you work in our company. What? Why this sudden development? I was surprised. Then my younger brother began to explain, Lucy, you've always been observant of others, right? I was taken aback and argued, wait, what are you talking about? Actually, recently someone we trusted ran off with our money. I was shocked. Yes, it's true. This person had been associated with us since Dad was alive. He was an executive. But now there's a vacancy. I couldn't accept this sudden turn of events right away. I can't just agree to this right away. I hesitated. And then my mother spoke. Lucy, it's a lot to ask, but can you help us? Mom, are you okay to be up? I asked. She had been unwell and resting a lot for the past year. I'm feeling better today. Don't worry. But is this request too much? She inquired. It's sudden. I need some time to think. I couldn't make a decision that day and returned to my own home, feeling lost on how to respond to my mother's request. I decided to discuss it with David. Wow, that's great. You should definitely accept it, he said, clearly thrilled. Are you sure? Well, it could mean a better salary than what you have now, right? We haven't discussed the details yet. I support your brother's proposal. It seemed there was a special reason behind his enthusiastic support. A week after our discussion, I received another call from home. Please come back home immediately. What's happened? It's Mom. I left work early and rushed back home. Upon arrival, many people had already gathered. In the midst of them, my mother was lying there. I can't believe it. It was too sudden and I couldn't grasp for reality. It was unexpected. According to my eldest brother, our mother had already passed away when he woke up in the morning. I couldn't even see her face. All I could do was stand there, stunned. Lucy, where is David? Oh, right, I haven't contacted him yet. I'll call him right now. I hurriedly made the call, but there was no response from David. After several attempts and no response, I reluctantly left a message on his voicemail. I need you to come immediately. There's something important, I said urgently. As time slowly passed, about 2 hours later, David finally arrived at my family home. Sorry for being late. I was really busy with work today. Couldn't find the time, he said lightly, apologizing. However, seeing David's demeanor, his expression carried an inexplicable lightness, and I felt a surge of irritation and anger. Why do you look so happy? Don't you realize my mom has passed away? I asked. No, it's not like that, David replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Anyway, I just want some peace right now, I told him. But he laughed it off, as saying, don't worry, it's all going to be okay. Visitors kept coming to the house, and we were busy attending to them. As time went on, I noticed it was already past midnight. Exhausted, I slumped onto the sofa to rest. Then David suddenly brought up an unbelievable topic. With a smile, he started talking about dividing the inheritance. So, what about the inheritance? Do you get anything? He asked nonchalantly. I was shocked and confused by his question. Why would you ask that all of a sudden? Don't you understand the situation? I responded. Well, your father was managing a company, so there might be a significant inheritance, right? David continued. But I was filled with sorrow and anger. Stop it. Talking about inheritance at a time like this is just too insensitive. I raised my voice. But this is important. We have to think about the future, he said. But his words didn't resonate with me. If all you want to talk about is money, you can leave, I retorted. I was stunned by David's thoughtless attitude. Pained by the disconnect in his perception amidst the heavy atmosphere of losing a family member. The air between David and me felt completely different from before. Sitting on the sofa, I was deep in thought about how to overcome the challenges ahead, weighed down by profound grief. Okay, I understand, David replied, and then he really left. I couldn't believe I had to be so direct. As David left, my eldest brother entered the room. Is there a problem? He asked. Yeah, a little. It's tough for you too. It's unimaginable to talk about inheritance in this situation. Usually such a topic wouldn't come up. Actually, I told him about you inviting me to join the company, and he was very enthusiastic about it. Maybe he has a strong fixation on money. There might be something to it. That might be true, I pondered. My brother reassured me, don't worry about us, and urged me to return to my home. Later, I attempted to call David, but he did not respond. So I decided to contact David's parents. Lucy, we heard from David. What happened to your mother is truly unfortunate. Did he tell you anything else? Yes, he said you were trying to handle the inheritance by yourself. My mother-in-law exclaimed, What? No, that's not true at all. We haven't even discussed such a thing. Really? Are you hiding something? The conversation with my mother-in-law was not productive. Anyway, now is not the time for such discussions. You're quite cheeky, aren't you? I replied. Then my mother-in-law abruptly hung up the phone. She seemed quite angry, but it wasn't very important to me. When I got home, David was nowhere to be found that day. The next day, I confronted him. Where on earth were you? Does it matter where I was? I see, I replied. Our relationship was deteriorating day by day. A week passed with hardly any conversation. My brothers took care of the funeral arrangements for our mother. The funeral went smoothly, but David and his parents were nowhere to be seen. Amidst this, I made a decision. Brother, I'll help out with the business. Really? Are you sure that's okay? You can take more time to think about it. We were a bit hasty last time and didn't consider your situation enough. Thank you, but I've made up my mind. I'll be fine. Thus, I started my new career as an executive in my brother's company. After debating whether to tell David, I decided it was better to be honest than to keep it a secret and face problems later. I'll be busy with my duties as a director from now on. Really? David asked. Then work hard for my sake too. Of course I will, I replied. I resigned from my job and decided to switch to my brother's company. The new job was challenging and tiring, but I found it fulfilling. 6 months later, David said something unexpected. Actually, I quit my job. What? Why so suddenly? The last job just wasn't right for me. Weren't you in sales? No, I was working in a factory. What? Really? I was speechless with this shocking revelation. All this time, I thought he was in sales, but he wasn't. So he had been lying to me since we met. You've been lying all this time. Lying about what? Forget it. It doesn't matter anymore. What are you talking about? David asked. I regretted marrying someone like him. What are you planning to do now? You don't have a job, do you? It's fine. You're a director, right? You must be earning a good salary, David said. Finally, I understood. David had become complacent about working. So, you were after my money. Stop talking as if I did something wrong. Besides, it's better to keep the director position a secret from my family, right? That's true. And starting next month, I have to start sending money to my family. I need your help with that. Wait, this is the first time hearing about this. I just decided to do it recently. Indeed, it would be troublesome if my in-laws found out. But I couldn't just accept this. But if it gets out, you'll be in trouble too, right? David said, surprised. You know, if they find out you're unemployed, they'll be angry too, right? So you need to find some work too. What do you mean? It's a trade-off. This way, both our secrets are safe, right? That makes sense. So we agree on this then? All right. I don't want to worry my parents, so please help me. David reluctantly agreed. However, I had no intention of continuing this situation indefinitely. Afterward, David started a part-time job as per my suggestion, but he was only earning a meager $8 per hour. He wasn't working full-time, and his lifestyle was more akin to that of a free-spirited student. Moreover, he was spending his earnings on gambling. "Why don't you go out sometimes? It's not good to always stay at home," I suggested. "Well, don't worry about me. Let me live as I please." Eventually, David seemed to forget the secret we were hiding. From that time, he became increasingly unmanageable. Despite being only a part-time, he started coming home late and going out more often. "Lately, you're coming home late. Is something going on?" I asked. "Well, there's been more overtime," David replied. "But didn't you choose that job because there was no overtime?" "That was the case, but things have changed." "And what about going out when there's no work?" I probed further. "I need to exercise outside sometimes," he responded. "But why do you need to dress up for that?" I felt doubtful about David's changes and kept questioning him. At first, he appeared composed, but he couldn't hide his confusion under my questioning. "I can answer everything all at once. Give me some time to think." "I don't think the questions are that difficult. Just because you're an executive, are you looking down on me?" "Why would you think that?" "If you want to belittle me, go ahead." "Wait, where are you going?" "Anywhere. It doesn't matter." With those words, David left the house. How self-centered can a person be? In the end, he didn't return until morning. When he did come home, he immediately fell asleep without saying a word. I left for work when it was time. Upon arriving at the office, my eldest brother approached me. "What's wrong? You look so down." "Yeah, there's a lot going on." "It's about your husband, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. We'll talk later." Then I joined my second brother, and the three of us had a conversation. I explained everything that had happened. "You've endured a lot. In such a situation, I would have divorced him immediately." "I know. I need to change the current situation, but do you have any plans?" "A little." The doubts about David's behavior were growing, but I still hoped he would return to the man he once was. I couldn't bring myself to completely give up on him. But I was soon made to realize that my hope was naive. "If that's the case, you should resolve the issues sooner rather than later." "Yes, you're right. This isn't advice, but there must be a reason behind his actions. It would be good to find out what that is first." "Thank you. I'll do just that." I followed my brother's advice and decided to investigate David's behavior. Since I had no idea what he was doing while I was away at work, I asked my second brother to set up a small camera. "Be careful. It would be a problem if it's discovered. Choose the installation slot wisely." "Understood." "Thank you. You can view the recorded footage on your smartphone anytime." "That's helpful. I'm not great with technical stuff." While David was out, I installed cameras in the living room and bedroom. I became so anxious about what the cameras might capture that I couldn't sleep at night. Then I received a call from my mother-in-law. Despite expecting it, it wasn't good news. I answered, "Lucy, is it true you quit your job?" "What? I don't recall quitting my job." "Really? David said you did." "No, I'm still working." "Well, it's none of my business, but be sure to thank David." "Wait a minute." I involuntarily raised my voice. I couldn't believe David told her such a baseless story. I wished he would come home soon, unaware of my feelings. David returned home smiling. "I get the jackpot at the casino today." "Here's a souvenir," he said, handing me a bag full of prizes. "What's this?" I asked. "It's a gift," he replied. The gift wasn't important. "By the way, I got a call from your mother earlier." "From Mom? What did she say?" David asked. "Apparently, I've quit my job." "Oh, that. I got a bit carried away. I was told I should be grateful." Don't say unnecessary things from now on, I told him. Got it. I'll be careful. If something like this happens again, you understand, right? Ah, yeah. Don't be so harsh on me, he replied. That depends on your actions. After that, David seemed to behave more quietly for a while. He appeared to be working hard and going out less. Then an opportunity arose to visit my family home. I'm heading back to my parents' place for a bit. I plan to return in 2 days. Okay, take care. Have fun. I'm not going for fun. My bad. Isn't it time for you to leave? All right. I'm counting on you to take care of things here. He seemed oddly cheerful. Leaving him alone made me uneasy, but I was busy with the first anniversary of my mother's death. At home, my brothers warmly welcomed me. Thanks for making the effort to come. It's natural for me to come for Mom's first anniversary. By the way, how's the camera situation going? The camera thing? Yeah, that high-tech camera we talked about. Oh, the one I asked to keep an eye on David. Exactly. Did you forget? Yeah, I've been so busy with other things that I completely forgot about it. My mind had been preoccupied with daily tasks and interactions with my mother-in-law, so keeping an eye on David had slipped my mind. I'll check it when I get home. You can see it right now on your smartphone. That's right, I forgot I could do that. Make sure you remember. Following my brother's suggestion, I searched for past footage on my smartphone. The screen showed David getting ready to go out. Checking the date of the video, it was from about a week ago. Interesting. Did you find something? Yes, look at this. I decided to show my brothers a video I had recorded earlier. The video not only showed the image, but also perfectly captured the audio. On the screen, David was speaking on the phone with another woman, and they were making plans to meet soon. Furthermore, it was clear from their conversation that they were exchanging words of love. These facts could serve as clear evidence of David's infidelity. This is undeniable proof of cheating, I thought to myself. My anger was indescribable. How could this happen? I can't believe it, I murmured to myself, feeling such a complex mix of emotions. He's a terrible person. You couldn't see David's true nature, my eldest brother joked, prompting me to glare at him. It's just a joke. Don't glare at me like that. After successfully completing my mother's first anniversary, I rushed back home. I tried contacting David several times, but there was no response. When I arrived home, everything except my belongings was gone. I was speechless. What have they done? Frustrated, I tried contacting my in-laws, but there was no response from them either. Looking around, I noticed the camera I had installed was still in place. Maybe this will give me some insight, I thought, and immediately checked the footage on the screen. David and his parents were visible, and their conversation was clearly audible. That should be enough. I wonder what face she'll make when she gets back. Let's go. We have no more business here. Yes, let's do that. Hearing this conversation, I hurried to my in-laws' house, suspecting something. It was a 40-minute train ride away. Though I had an ominous feeling, I was shocked to see the state of my in-laws' house. The house had already been sold. A neighbor approached me. The people from that house moved out a few days ago. Do you know where they moved to? I don't know the details, but they said they were going to live with their son and seemed happy about it. I see. Thank you. From that moment, I vowed to seek revenge. Returning home, I planned my next steps, but I had no idea where David and his parents were and couldn't contact them. The situation was at a standstill, and it had been 3 days since they disappeared. Enjoying your poor lifestyle? Poor, what do you mean? I asked. I'm worried about you, came a call from my mother-in-law out of the blue. Worried that I'm working for an hourly wage of $8. I questioned. Yes, David said so. I wonder why he married such a woman. He's achieved so much more, my mother-in-law said. He said that too, I murmured. Everything clicked into place. David had been deceiving his parents. He struggled with the financial disparity between us, asking me to keep it a secret from his parents, but it had backfired. It felt like gratitude had turned into resentment. I questioned myself why I had stayed silent. Your understanding of the situation seems lacking, Mother. What? The one who doesn't understand is you. Do you believe everything David says is correct? As a mother, it's natural to believe in my son. That's truly regrettable. That's just an excuse. But it wasn't an excuse. In reality, it was David who was working for an hourly wage of $8, while I held an executive position. Her life was supported by my executive salary, yet believing her son's lies. My mother-in-law said, "If you want to live with us, I can hire you as a housemaid." Are you serious about that? Of course I'm serious. If you agree to work as a housemaid, I don't mind giving you the address. I needed to make it clear that I had no intention of living with them. I absolutely refuse. The one who works for $8 per hour is David, not me. I've endured this long enough, and now I'm considering divorce. That's absurd. Stop joking. Have you gone mad? I could hear her laughing through the phone. Time will tell who is right. Why don't you confirm with David? I'm at my limit with you. I thought about helping you, but not anymore. That's exactly what I want. After she hung up in anger, David contacted me within a few minutes. He must have been questioned by his mother. Naturally, I decided not to respond to David's calls and set them to be blocked. He must be panicking, I thought. I planned to enjoy a life of freedom on my own. This decision would likely lead to a harsh outcome for David and his family. The next day, I decided to move out. Even if David and his family returned, I would no longer be there, just returning the treatment I received. I discussed the situation with my brothers and immediately visited a nearby real estate agent. I was looking for a place to move into as soon as possible. There's a property available for immediate occupancy, but the rent is a bit high. That's not a problem. I'll take that property. Understood. Let's proceed with the paperwork. I completed the contract that day and contacted a moving company. Fortunately, since it was only my belongings, the move was completed quickly. After that, I relaxed in my new home, enjoying the life of living alone. 2 weeks later, I noticed many missed calls from my mother-in-law on my smartphone. David was already blocked, so I was only receiving calls from my mother-in-law. I decided to answer, even though it was a bit of a hassle. But when I picked up, it wasn't my mother-in-law, but David. Where are you? I can't get into the house. I've moved out. Moved? Why? You started it, didn't you? So I did the same. Wait, what about our life together? You shouldn't have lied in the first place. It's not my problem. But also, I'm considering a divorce. I'll send the papers, so give me your new address. Then David started laughing. Right, you don't know my new address, so no divorce then. I had anticipated such a response, but I'm not one to give up easily. I may not know the address, but I won't give up on the divorce. I can find it out with some investigation. Wait a minute, it's unreasonable for us to split up. It's not unreasonable. You should tell the truth to your parents. It might lighten your heart. Fine, I'll talk to them. I can't trust your words anymore. Goodbye. After ending the call, I immediately headed to a lawyer's office. I decided to consult with the company's legal advisor, as suggested by my brother. After explaining the situation and showing the footage recorded by the camera, he agreed to take on my case. He promptly began preparing for the divorce proceedings. A few days later, I left a message on my mother-in-law's phone. Then 7 days later, David and his family showed up at the agreed place. Thanks for coming. Let's begin the proceedings. Yes, that's why we're here, resorting to hiring a lawyer. You must be desperate, my mother-in-law said with a laugh, but David's face had turned pale. In the end, it turned out that David had not yet told his parents the truth, but that worked in my favor. Firstly, dig David's infidelity. I will be filing for divorce and seeking compensation. What are you talking about? Please have a look at this. I showed David and his parents the footage recorded by the camera. This is the evidence. If you have any objections, please speak up. David remained silent. David, what is this about? Explain yourself. Well, actually. Then I presented documents regarding the claim for compensation. The documents detailed the lack of contribution to household expenses, insufficient cooperation in housework, lies to his parents, and the emotional distress caused to me. What is this? It's absolutely false. This is unacceptable. Even my normally quiet father-in-law seemed unable to contain his dismay. While I wasn't particularly interested in his reaction, I was ready to deal with him if he became an adversary. Then please have a look at this. I handed his parents my business card. What's this? Let me see. They scrutinized the card closely. This is the reality, the truth David has been hiding all along. What about the story of earning $8 per hour? That was about David. In reality, I've been supporting our household. David was using his earnings for gambling. Hearing this, his parents turned their anger towards David. So all the living expenses were covered by? Yes, I've been shouldering them. David, why would you lie like this? We were mistaken. It's too late now. Why did you do this? I just didn't want to worry you both. It was like a family argument. I had no more expectations from them. Please have your family quarrel elsewhere. I don't have time for this. With that, my in-laws suddenly changed their demeanor, showing an apologetic attitude. Lucy, please forgive us. We're victims in this too. Mother's right. We never hated you, Lucy. Even so, my decision won't change. Their apologies at this timing felt pathetically insincere. David remained silent, looking down. Could you sign this divorce paper? What is this? I want to end this situation quickly. You have no right to object. All right, I understand. David signed the divorce papers, holding back tears. After confirming his signature, I decided to leave the room. Goodbye. Then, as I walked away, I could hear David and his parents arguing outside. Their future was uncertain, but a stable life seemed unlikely. They had managed to get by only because of my support. What an incredibly thoughtless family. Later, I submitted the divorce papers through my lawyer. Finally, I gained my freedom. Is the divorce finalized? Yes, you must already know, right? Our company lawyer is always well informed. But at least now I can relax. I can focus on work. My eldest brother said this lightly, but according to my second brother, he had been quite worried about me. It might be his way of hiding his concern. I've heard about David and his family's current situation through the lawyer. So it ended up like that. Apparently, David's mistress also disappeared after learning the truth. Naturally, I made sure to demand compensation. Then I got a call from my mother-in-law. There's something I want to ask, she said. Given the circumstances, her request was obvious. Are you asking for financial support? Yes, we can't make ends meet. The problem started with David, you know. With 3 of you, you should manage. Don't say that. Can't you help us? I have no reason to help you. You should go to hell. That's what I should be saying to you. Goodbye. Currently, David and his parents are living in a cramped space. They had relied on the income they thought David was earning, not working themselves. In reality, that money had been coming from me. Now I'm living freely on my own. unbound by anyone. Work is going well, and every day is fulfilling. Today, as I look up at the clear sky, I'm on my way to work.